Hi there, good evening. Welcome to another episode with Harleen Bagga on soul therapy. I am a multidisciplinary psychotherapist who uses techniques like CBT, NLP, mindfulness, life coaching, and meditation as tools to improve my patients' well-being and welfare. I am a psychologist, and it is my quest to make this world a better place, which is why I started soul therapy. We do these sessions every evening, Thursday evening at 7 p.m. And today we're going to talk about a meaningful life, spirituality, rituals, and a sanity check. So it's going to be a very, very interesting topic. I hope you stick on and we get some kind of reactions from all of you. So the first question that I have is, how can we live a meaningful life? This is a very, very interesting question and a very relative one at that, too. It is something that a lot of us suffer with and struggle to find an answer to. So, this is what I have to say about it. Meaning really depends, a meaningful life really depends on what you derive meaning from. If the meaning in your life is to own a big house, to be famous, to be popular, to have fame, or maybe just to do charity, to be someone who's known in the community, depending upon what you want in life, that becomes your meaning at that point in life. But sometimes, just sometimes, what happens is we don't realize that when we are running after these goals, which at that point have a perceived meaning to us, when we have achieved those goals, when we have climbed on top of the ladder, once we reach at the top of the ladder, we suddenly realize that the wall on which the ladder was barked on is the wrong wall. It is not what you really want to begin with. And that is where sometimes spirituality and well being has a deeper meaning, because it means that you as a person has to look deep within you to understand what you need and how you need. I'm going to address this with a little bit of spirituality here, right? To give you an example. For me, the tools that you need to have a well-meaning life could be self-contentment, could be discipline, and could be generosity. These are very big words. I understand what you're trying to, that it could be very daunting for you, and I'm sure you might not even agree from off the bat. But think about it. If we are able to master our own restrain, our own greed, and if we are able to develop generosity, then these take you in a path to find meaning to your life, and a meaning that really pulls you away from that of instant gratification, or that of the high that you get of meeting your goal. Instead, it takes you on a path where you are actually living a life of meaning. How do you do this, you might ask? Yes, these are big words. Self-contentment, discipline, and generosity by itself are infinite wells. So, how does one really develop those virtues within us? I do have an answer for you. You can maybe think about honesty, kindness, patience, and forgiveness. Again, these are words that are used very loosely. Every other person, any text that you're reading talks about these adjectives. And yet, we have so many psychological issues in this world. What does that tell you? That tells you that somewhere, as a society, we are failing to really embrace ourselves and failing to uh, embrace these virtues that lead us towards a meaningful life. When I say kindness, what does that mean? It does not mean being kind to a beggar on the road, being kind to a waiter that you see. Kindness begins with yourself. Be kind to yourself. What does that mean in a psychological context? Very often, we believe wrongly that we are not worthy. And when we believe that we are not worthy, we don't love ourselves. We are quick to judge ourselves, we are quick to harm ourselves, and we are very, very quick to accept when someone does injustice to us. For instance, in abusive relationships. Why is it sometimes, and I'm not saying in all cases, we cannot ever, ever generalize anything in life, but sometimes, why is it that the person who is being abused is okay with that happening? Why is it that they don't really retaliate or stand up for themselves? Because unfortunately, they believe that they deserve it, or they believe that the other person has the right to do that over them. Is this kindness? Do you think this is really being kind to yourself? Are you respecting yourself? No, you're not. So, the first virtue that you need to work on to develop and build a life that is full of meaning for yourself is kindness. Kindness to yourself. The second virtue that we're going to talk about today is honesty. Again, I do not mean the loose meaning of honesty. It's honesty is not about being honest with money or not doing harm with anyone. That's not what honesty really is. But the honesty that I'm talking about is being honest to yourself, which means don't cheat yourself. If you don't like something, be honest and accept to yourself that you don't like it. Tell the people around you that, you know what, this is not okay and I don't like it. The more you begin to compromise on yourself, the more you are moving away from fulfillment, you're moving away from being who you are and being authentic to yourself. And once you are away from your own path, can you really have a life that is meaningful? And that is my question today for the people who have just joined me. What I'm trying to answer right now is, how can we live a life full of meaning? There is layers of spirituality here, but these layers of spirituality is beautifully enticed with human psychology. And I need you to understand this, because at the end of life, you want to look back and say that you did live a life of meaning. You did not get caught up in the rut, just running the rat race without really realizing what. And that is something that I really want you to think about. Um, so, going into it further, if I have to give you information to empower you, to make sure that you're able to get a hang of what I'm saying, think about spirituality or well being having two dimensions. I am simplifying this just for your perspective. It is not the rule of the land, all right? A first dimension could be uh, your inner peace, your inner mental and emotional well being, and your sense of innate balance that you have about about what is right and what is wrong and what needs to be done in the society. The second dimension is what religion brings in. Religion by itself is not bad, right? And I'm not here talking about or against religion, because as a psychotherapist, that's not a stand that I can take. But religious based cultures and practices have their own benefits, and they lead you to develop that kind of emotional stamina that is important for your well being. The problem today, okay, and this is important, the problem today is that as humans, we are not only greedy, but we are actually easily excitable, and fickle. Think about it. We want the next shiny toy. We want a new car. We want a new phone. We want to upgrade our house. We want new clothes. We want to get the next toy. So the human mind is running after things that excite it, that give it a sense of instant gratification rather than adding true value or meaning in your life. And when you are running behind that instant gratification, about getting that next new thing, you have indirectly put yourself in a cycle where you don't have time to find true meaning, unfortunately, because once you get the thing, you're again looking out for the next thing. Okay, what can I get next? What can I get next? And that becomes your identity. Can you step away from your identity? That becomes your self-esteem. I have the latest phone. I have the latest gadget. If that is becoming your relevance, are you able to step away from it? No, right? And that is what makes it difficult for us to have a meaningful life in today's day and age. See, why is it that today we have so many spiritual workshops? We have so many webinars that people are really going after. We put ourselves in classes, we put ourselves in these workshops to learn code of ethics, right? And these code of ethics to teach us how to live better, how to embrace a positive living in a way. But, and you need to answer this very honestly, once that workshop gets done, once you are done with that webinar, how many of you actually remember that lesson and follow that lesson? You do that for a few days, a few weeks, maybe a few months. What happens after that? That lesson is forgotten. And you know why? Because we forget that ethics are not rules that we need to follow. It is not a set of instructions or check marks that we need to follow with. But ethics are our guiding principles. It is our principles that tell us how we need to evolve, what we need to focus on to feel good, and not just feel good by ourselves, but to also make the person in front of us feel good. And that is what human relationships and rapport is all about. Once we start to value ourselves, once you start to value yourself and work on a path that truly makes you happy, you would have found your path and your meaning. And that is how we answer the question. There are a couple of things that we spoke about here. Do reflect on it. Find meaning in something that keeps you happy, but not gives you instant gratification. There is a difference between instant gratification and fulfillment. And when you are able to find something that gives you meaning, that gives you a sense of fulfillment, you would have found meaning for your life. And when you find the meaning of that life, nobody can take anything away from you, because you have focus and you have motivation that is true and honest to you. The next question that I have, so today's session is mostly about all of this, which is what people want to talk about, is how to evolve and become better spiritually, especially in today's time where there is so much of anxiety regarding the lockdown, and especially to people who are not religious to begin with. For them, spirituality is something that is which it is a reward, it is a low-hanging tree, which is very far to them. So my attempt right now is to explain to you what spirituality is and where science comes in, and how you can change yourself in a way to benefit yourself. That's it. The quick answer to that question is And again, that's just one perspective. It is just one answer. My job is not to get into religion and spirituality and go all out here. It is to empower you with enough information so that you are able to take that next step and move forward. So the short answer to the question, which is an actionable item, is if you want to evolve and become better spiritually, you have to learn to be just at your core. What does that mean? Justice begins when we believe in fairness based on human equality, not justice based on legalities, but purely on human equality. To bring this into perspective, I'm going to talk to you about an experiment and a game that was played by an Austrian economist. His name is Ernst Furr, and he introduced a very, very interesting game. It's called the game of trust. In that game, he took 10 people and he asked each of those 10 people to contribute to a central fund. And the game, he said, would last for 10 rounds. And once you got in that game, you could not exit before the 10th round. So in the first round, each of the 10 players contributed a certain sum. The objective of the game was, at the end of the maturity period, whatever was in the fund, it would be equally divided amongst all the 10 people. And it would be doubled. Not only would it be equally divided, it would be doubled, which means that if I put in $10 and you put in $10, we have a total sum of 20. We each would get double of the amount back to us. It was a very good deal. So everyone in the first few rounds started contributing. Then came the kicker. The kicker was that you could be a free rider, and the free rider could actually also get the benefit where you could take from the pot without actually contributing. Once that clause came in, people's contribution to the pot started reducing. So instead of contributing equally, even though they knew that they would get back double, they started minimizing the contribution. So by the end of the 10th round, the pot, the central fund, became empty. What does this tell you? This tells you that as humans, we are noble to begin with. But the moment we realize that someone is taking advantage of us, the moment we realize that we are being unfairly judged or used, or the other person is getting an advantage, we don't do the right thing. Call it a survival instinct. I understand in today's world, it is very, very important to have that survival instinct, to just survive. But in that greed, in that protection of yourself, you lost out on making double. The experiment did not end there. What Ernst did further is, in the next round, he said, all right, all you 10 people can contribute to the fund again and earn twice the amount back. But this time, we will have another fund, a non-refundable fund, and he called it the punishment account, the punishment fund. And in the punishment fund, each of those 10 people contributed equally. But the kicker here was the free rider, the person who did not want to contribute to the fund, but only get money back. He was going to contribute twice the amount instead of the nominal premium. What do you think happened? Once a detriment was placed, and a detriment placed thinking that everyone is equal, by treating everyone equal. When that detriment was placed, everything became all right. Everyone contributed equally, and they all earned equal amounts and double their investment. Yes, though the experiment was that of economics, but this also lends itself very well to human psychology. What did you learn with that experiment? That somewhere we all need that internal moral compass within us. We need a detriment in place to make sure that we do the right thing. And that is the essence of spirituality. To know, own, understand, and recognize where your moral compass is what is essentially what spirituality is. Our ethical values and principles need to arise from compassion. It is not out of rules. It needs to be from a sense of compassion where we are actually benefiting each other and one another. And when we really think with that compassion for the community and for each other, we are building that community of fairness and justice. Let me put this in perspective for you. Um, During olden times, right, the modern education, I'm not talking about the education where slates, but when modern education was introduced in schools, at that point in time, families were smaller, families spent more time with each other, communities were more active, religion was a big part of who we were. We did our daily prayers, we did our religious practices, we participated in the community. So the our own ethical values, our sense of compassion, our sense of spirituality, our sense of well-being was innately given to us through our house and our community and our religion. It was a three-part triangle. But today's education system focuses more on literally and technical skills. Yes, these skills were introduced and focused on at that time because it took the spiritual values for granted. It took the compassion and emotional values for granted. But what we didn't realize that somewhere over time, man focused so much on competencies, skills, and being more academically oriented that we lost track, we lost in touch with our communities, we lost in touch with our values, we lost in touch with somewhere with religion. And why is that important? Because we lost our moral compass. We lost our sense of compassion. We lost our tolerance for each other. And when we lose our sense of compassion and our tolerance, what kind of a community does that make us? Is it a community that you would want to be a part of? Is that the community that you want your children to grow up in? If each of us today can impart this kind of knowledge in our children, where they are able to formulate their compass deep within them and stick to them, then we would actually be nurturing and forming a community which is grand, which is not eroded with materialistic values and economic pursuits. Today, everything is about how rich you are, how what you wear, how well you do. But that is not a meaningful life. And that was what the first question today was. I am going to quote Dalai Lama here, right? I actually read a lot of his books, and he has immense knowledge to give. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about one more thing. The challenge in today's educational system, the challenge with today's community is not to provide education. It is not to provide an ethical background, but it is to provide values that are unbiased, that are actually about tolerating different perspectives. Today, when we are so gung-ho about who we are, where we come from, our religion, and etc., to develop that kind of tolerance, which is an authentic tolerance, which is a true tolerance, is the biggest challenge here in our community. So if we as parents can inculcate that in ourselves and our children, if the teachers and the schools and the education system can talk about moral classes and moral values, about just being tolerant, then our future, our tomorrow can actually be much better than our today. So Dalai Lama gave us three ways to develop this. He said the first one, he says that we have to develop ethics in three dimensions. The first dimension is what he called ethic of restraint. Restrain from harming others, restrain from uh, doing divisive gossip, of using politics, of mudslinging, slander, bringing each other down. If you can restrain yourself from being impulsive, if you can restrain yourself from harming the other person when you are harmed initially, then you have developed a side of spirituality that can take you towards a well-meaning and a better life. The second dimension of ethics is ethics of virtue, as quoted by Dalai Lama. He said ethic of virtue is your own virtues, which means that you cultivate, develop, and build on values and behavior that makes you a better person. So you're focusing on feelings, behaviors, and thoughts, which is what the essence of psychology is. If you can actually focus on those three things, you become a virtuous person. And once you are able to develop that kind of ethic, you spread it to your community and you make your community a better and a more virtuous one. The third dimension, as quoted by Dalai Lama, was the ethics of altruism. Uh, this is, I'm going to say it, and I understand it's very difficult for us to do, but the third ethic was dedicating your life to the welfare of others. The very few of us who can really do this at this point in time, I understand that. But those who actually do that, who give in and give your life and dedicated to your community, your kids, you have mastered that third dimension of ethics. And once you have mastered all those three dimensions, ethic of restraint, ethic of virtue, and ethic of altruism, you have made yourself a spiritual person. You have made yourself a person who is above the nitty gritty of human life, who is a better human being, and who has the power and the strength to influence others. The basis is human psychology, and that is the reason why we're talking about it. So, focus on your thoughts. That is the seed of your feelings. Thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to behaviors, and behaviors is what leads to action. So, if you are able to restrain yourself and move away from that thought and being impulsive, you automatically will evolve into a person who is more controlled with their behavior and their reactions. And that makes you a lovely person to be around. It makes you a spiritual person, and it helps you build a community that is ideal for yourself and your children. The only thing that I want to tell you here is make sure your ethic is grounded in motivation rather than consequences. What I mean by that is don't build an ethic of restraint, for example, that I am going to work hard and I am not, but as long as I win, as long as I get the first rank. If your ethic is based on consequence, then it will falter. Then it is not true and you're not being authentic. And when you're not being authentic, You cannot be a spiritual person. You cannot be a person who's moving towards really fulfillment and well being. It is important that you remember that. So, ground your ethic in your motivation. If your motivation is to be the best player, focus on being the best player. Just focus on yourself. Don't focus on bringing others down. Don't focus on slander. Don't focus on unnecessary competition. If your motivation is to be the richest person, to or to change the face of telecommunication tomorrow, or science, or whatever the case may be, ground your ethic in that motivation, in what drives you. And once that is done, that will keep you moving forward in a path that is both spiritually and mentally and emotionally aligned with you. So that answers that question. The next question that I have that I want to quickly talk about is, um, what do we do to make sure that we can stay connected to our partners? I have a very, very simple tip here for you. See, there are times in any relationship, not just with partners, right? Whether it is a sibling or a parent or a romantic relationship or anything. In a relationship that is close, it is but obvious that there will be ups and downs in a relationship. There will be times where you want to just step away from that relationship. And it is in those times, unfortunately, where you are the weakest. And if someone else enters your life, you gravitate towards that someone else unknowingly. Uh, there are three things that you can do to make sure that you are in control, to make sure that you are always in the path that you want to be at. Like we spoke about, right? That your motivation is true to who you are. What do we do? First thing I want you to do when you are upset with someone, when you are angry with someone, first, of course, decouple from that person. Let a day pass by. The next day, ask yourself, what is the fondest memory you have of that person? We are training our thoughts to think positive. This is a part and could come under CBT, which is cognition behavioral therapy. We are changing our cognitions to once again become positive and remind ourselves of the fondness that we have for that person. So, step one, think of a memory that is close to you, the best memory, a fond memory. Once you think of that fond memory, what do you think happens? The hormones are released in your body. You feel happy, you feel close, and that tingling of love and oxytocin kicks in. Second, I want you to think about a memory where you wanted to change something. And I don't mean here about, for example, you have a memory where, that you were arguing or having a fight with your spouse. I don't want you to think about in the way that, oh, I wish my spouse would understand. I wish my spouse would have kept quiet and walked away. You don't have the power to change the other person. So when I'm asking you to think of a memory that you want altered, it is a memory that you can change your behavior alone. Why does that help? It makes you a better person. It helps you evolve. It helps you recognize and accept your shortcomings. And once you are able to bring to your consciousness maybe a memory that was not so good, but had you changed your behavior in that memory, it would have led to a better consequence. It comes down to that internalization process that I spoke to you about. Thoughts lead to feelings lead to attitude leads to behavior, and behavior leads to outcome. Third thing that I want you to do is to imagine that person, and this is only true in a romantic relationship, right? To make sure that we develop that kind of lust and want for that person again. I want you to imagine that person in the most whatever is the most beautifully appearing for you, right? So imagine that person wearing a dress or in a form, in a physiology, in an external appearance that would excite you, that would make you feel closer to that person. Once you imagine that person in that avatar, in that form, it again releases those emotions in your body, and those emotions simply melt all that negativity in your body. So even if you are at that point betraying or going astray from your relationship, just doing these 3 tips will bring you back on track to be loyal to your spouse. And that is very, very important in any committed relationship. If we cannot be committed, then what are we? Right? Commitment is the basis of all human relationships. The last question that I have for today is that how do we maintain our sanity in a time that is as uncertain as this? Um, Again, I will not get into the depth and breadth of this answer. My job is to keep it extremely simplistic so that I can give you uh, a technique or a tip that you can use, employ, and help yourself to get there. What you can do is build rituals. What do I mean by that? So, what is a ritual, right? Ritual, I'm not talking about religious rituals or traditions. I'm talking about ritual being nothing but a set of behaviors that you do in a repeated fashion, a habit almost, right? If we are able to discipline ourselves to have a routine in our day to day lives, or to have a ritual that reminds us of that love in our life, of the power and the courage in our life, that acts as magic, it acts as a medicine, and it again melts away all that anxiety and stress in your body. Let's put this into perspective. So I'm going to tell you something very personal, right? Like for me, for instance, my children, when they hug me or when they kiss me, when I am sad, when I am upset, when I am stressed, I have a ritual in my life where every time I'm stressed, every time I've either spoken to a client that has disturbed me, or I am fighting to help a client and make them better, and I'm really mentally disturbed, I just go to my children and I ask them to kiss on both my cheeks. And for me, that is energy. That is my ritual. And that ritual empowers me with so much of strength that anxiety and stress cannot even enter my mind beyond a certain period. So you find your rituals that work for you. Find your routine that works for you. Sometimes even having a routine is important. What do I mean? When you have a daily routine, right? When you have some kind of discipline in your life, it gives you a sense of reassurance. Our unconscious mind needs that kind of reassurance. And when our unconscious mind is at peace, it uh, it does not have any anxiety and stress, and that is when we feel at peace and calm. So make sure that you have, especially in lockdown where there is a restricted freedom around you, have a routine, because the more you stick to a routine, the more the message goes to your mind that you are in control. And when you are in control of your environment, of your feelings and behaviors, it gives your mind a sense of security and well-being. And once you are secure, I don't think there's going to be any anxiety or stress. So, very simply put, work on a ritual or a habit that empowers you, that just gives you that zing, right? Could be a hug from your husband, could be a song that you listen to, could be a game that you play with your children, could be a dance that you do, could be whatever. But that one ritual that when is repeated multiple times, you train your mind that, hey, when I do this, I have this release of adrenaline and endorphins where I am the most powerful person on earth. I can achieve the impossible. Psychology and neuroscience has proof that works. You have to find out what that is for you. If you need help finding that out, please go ahead and contact me and we can find and work on it. But if not, if you have enough of self awareness, build that for yourself. That is number one. Second, build a routine in your life where you are giving yourself and giving your mind a sense of stability. When you are stable, when your mind is given a sense of stability, it is the reassurance that it needs that all is well. Otherwise, from morning to evening, you are running in this rat race. You are running. There are jobs, there are milestones, there is packages coming in, everything has to be sanitized, there's children who need to be taken care of. There are so many things today that you have to worry about that unknowingly you are building anxiety in your day-to-day life, especially given the fact that we don't have the freedom to ventilate it, we don't have the freedom to be physically active, and hence that increases the probability of anxiety and stress in this period. The only way to tackle it, like I already discussed, is to have a stable routine where you are able to completely tell your mind, hey, I am in control, you are in control, and nothing can bother you. And second, develop that ritual that empowers you, that works for you. Once you do that, it will give you consistent performance time after time, and that I can guarantee you. But you have to find something where the motivation is true to you, like we spoke about. We've had a very interesting session and a good one. To recap, we spoke about what is well being and how we can work and have a life full of meaning. We secondly spoke about what is spirituality and how today, especially children and adults who are more scientifically prone, can build and evolve their spiritual self. We spoke about the tips on what needs to be done to make sure that you stay committed in a relationship. How do you remind yourself about the love and the relationship that you have? We spoke about a sanity check, and we spoke about true ethics and morals that guide you to a life of fulfillment. Thank you so much for watching in and tuning in. I hope you can join me next Thursday at 7 p.m. Do subscribe, like, and share the video. Spread the word. This is Harleen from Soul Therapy, and I am here every Thursday talking to you about things that matter to you. Send me your questions, your rebuttals, whatever you have, your thoughts, your comments on my Facebook, on my YouTube, on my Insta or WhatsApp. Do subscribe to Soul Therapy with Harleen Bagga for a lot of free tips and information. And I hope to keep giving you information time and again every week, because honestly, that is my true motivation and that is where my ethic is invested in. Thank you so much for watching in. Until next time, bye-bye.